Nikki, you need to find a summer job. It's been 3 weeks since you graduated. Nick's stepmother Sandy said as they sat in the kitchen eating breakfast together. Before you know it, it will be September and your first year of college. Yeah, I know. I'm trying. Nick hated his stepmother calling him Nicky. It was as if she was belittling him. His stepmother always seemed to tease him about his skinny physique and shyness toward girls. Truth is, he had never felt comfortable around the fairer sex. He grew up with his dad, and so there were no women in the household. The two of them did everything together. Things changed 3 years ago when his dad married Sandy. She was a beautiful woman with long blonde hair and dark eyes that mesmerized the boy. Nick wanted to believe that her arrival would make them a happy family and that he'd have a loving female figure in this life. Thinking back to that time, he would shake his head in pain and disappointment. It just seemed like he was in the way after they got married. Tragedy struck last summer. His father died mysteriously on a camping trip with his wife. Needless to say, Nick was devastated. Sandy, in contrast, was stoic. She got over it quickly, and he resented that. He tried his best to get along with his stepmom, but he couldn't help feel self-conscious about himself when he was around her. If you were serious, dear, you'd talk with Madge like I told you to. She has a lot of contacts where she works. Madge was their widowed middle-aged neighbor. Madge and Nick's stepmother became close friends since the passing of his dad. She owned a beauty salon at the strip mall not far from where they lived. She had an air of sexuality to her and always dressed in well-tailored outfits. Being a typical teen-aged boy, Nick found himself stealing glances at her whenever he could. But he was also intimidated by her. Madge sensed this and never missed a chance to tease the boy. "Oh, all right. I'll talk to her," exasperation coming from his voice. Such was his desperation. "It so happens that Madge is dropping by for tea this afternoon. Please try and be here, Nicky." When Sandy and Madge were together, he tried to keep away. 1 + 1 = 2, but in this case they were too much. They reveled in teasing Nick whenever he was present. He felt self-conscious enough with his stepmom. This made him angry, but then, it was just so easy to embarrass the young man. He spent the rest of the morning in his room on his computer. And during this time he felt a familiar dread at being in the clutches of the two women. Madge, dressed in a red and white polka-dot summer dress with white pumps, stepped out of her front door and headed to Sandy's. Despite it being warm out and this being their usual casual get-together, she still wore her usual full-fashion nylons. Bright red lipstick too. Going around back, she greeted Sandy, who was relaxing in the shade of their spacious patio. "My darling Sandy, always so nice to visit with you." "Aw, Madge. As always, you look sensational." "You're too kind, dear. I do like to look presentable. I have a reputation to keep up, you know." She smiled. Madge's salon was highly regarded as the place to go for beauty products and services. The two women sat on the patio, and Sandy poured tea and served finger sandwiches. "So, how are you doing, Sandy? I haven't spoken to you in weeks." "Oh, I'm fine, Madge." Her voice trailed off. "Really? It's just that Nicky hasn't found work. His dad left him money for college tuition, but I don't want him relying on me for handouts. It was bad enough that his dad gave him all that money. You do remember that I offered to find him suitable employment?" "Yes, that's very kind of you. I think I've now convinced him to consider your offer a few weeks ago." Ms. Dupont popped by to visit Madge in her boutique. "Let me guess. You need another janitor." "Very good guess, Madge. Have you got anyone for me?" "I may have a good one for you, dear. He's my next-door neighbor's boy. Lovely boy. Delicate, shy. Just the sort you like. I'm still waiting to hear back. Seems he's looking around for something else. Ms. Dupont was torn when it came to hiring janitors. If she could find a female janitor, then she'd be satisfied. For good. Trouble was there were no females interested in such a job. So, she relied on Madge and other well-connected women to find boys for her. At least she could have fun with them. Needless to say, macho males and those types were never hired. She liked her boys weak and submissive. Of course, if they weren't up to the job, and that was often, she sent them to employment elsewhere with her network of friends. Oh, I saw your last one run out of the studio in tears the other day. I figured he wasn't coming back. Males are so useless. Please let me know as soon as possible, Madge. My studio is suffering. Nick reluctantly made his way downstairs, preparing himself for another bout of embarrassment. Oh, here comes Nikki now. Nick slid open the patio door to the outside. There sat the two women with wide smiles at the young man. He stood there motionless, wearing his usual t-shirt, shorts and sandals. As usual, Nick was drawn to Madge's stockinged legs. Nikki, look up. You know it's rude to stare. Say hi to Madge. Hi, Mrs. Cullimore. So nice to see you, Nikki. Madge turned to Sandy, placing a hand on her shoulder. You know, Sandy, every time I see Nikki I can't help but think he should have been born a girl. Such lovely slender legs, soft complexion, long wavy hair. A girl would die for. Anytime you want to come to my shop I'd love to give you a nice makeover, Madge. Please stop being silly. You're embarrassing the boy. And there again, Nick turned red with embarrassment and Madge smiled. Sandy tells me that you're not having any luck finding a summer job. My dear boy, why didn't you come see me sooner? I don't know. I didn't think it would be this hard. Well, you are in luck. One of my friends is in need of a janitor of sorts. Are you familiar with Dupont Ballet and Dance Studio? No? They're next door to my boutique. Ms. Dupont is looking for someone to clean the floors and keep the studio tidy. Sandy tells me that you're good at cleaning around the house. What do you think, Nikki? Well, sure. I guess that sounds good. That's settled then. I'll let you know when you can meet Ms. Dupont. After Nick left, the ladies continued their afternoon tea. Madge asking pointed questions about Nick and his future as well as his love life. I worry about that boy. He ought to find a girl. But he's intimidated around girls his own age, never mind lovely strong women like you and I. Sandy winked at Madge. It's because he's not had a mother in his life up until now. You know I try, but it's awkward. Sometimes I find him just staring at me like he's never seen a woman before. I used to think maybe he had a crush on me. Sandy laughed, then quietly, I don't think I mentioned this before, I asked him to do the laundry for me a few months ago, but I put an end to that when I caught him fondling my lingerie. It was creepy. Oh, my. Sounds like he's just exploring his feminine side a little. It's natural for a boy to be curious about women's lingerie. Especially someone like Nikki. Madge couldn't help smiling. It's just not normal. Sandy could not conceal her disdain. Lots of boys are attracted to frilly feminine clothing. I wouldn't worry about it, dear. And maybe what he needs is to meet an assertive girl who will guide him and lead the relationship. I know a few young ladies like that. I shouldn't have said anything. In any event, I hope this job can get him out of his shell. Madge gave a smile. I think this job will be an eye-opener for the boy. A chance to learn some life lessons. I'll be frank with you, Sandy, my friend at the studio will not tolerate weakness. Nikki is going to need to show his mettle. If he has any thought, Madge. Maybe that's just what the doctor ordered. I think the doctor ordered up another pretty boy for Ms. Dupont, thought Madge. Few people were close enough with Madame Dupont to call her by her first name, Adeline. She led a very private life in her newly adopted homeland. She was a very striking woman. Tall and athletic. She tended to hide her beauty by tying her raven hair tightly in a bun at the back. Her eyes matched her hair, and she was very good at intimidating the weak and helpless. Adeline spent her formative years in the Alsace region of France. Her family were deeply rooted in the town, and she benefited from education at the best schools. Her father was an investment banker, and her mom stayed at home raising Adeline and her older brother. She grew to resent her father, who demeaned her mother and always heaped praise on her older brother. It was ballet where she could escape from her dysfunctional family. And she excelled. Dancing kept her very fit, and she was proud of her lean physique. Adeline could have taken a scholarship from many of the finest schools in the world. Instead, she chose to go to Université Montpellier. There, she studied psychology, and of course she excelled. It was said that she liked to study and manipulate people. The details were never revealed, but rumors were that she had destroyed the reputations of a number of male professors in the department. The time between then and now was a mystery to virtually everyone. There was talk that she took up a teaching position at some secret academy overseas. At any rate, she left the academy and moved to this quaint little town more than 5 years ago. Today, aside from owning the studio, Madame instructed elite ballet classes. Her passion was to mentor strong, confident young women. Her students were all female, although on occasion a male student would enroll in one of her classes, but Madame made it extremely difficult on them. Truth was, she did not like men and took pleasure in humiliating them in front of the girls. Even those boys with talent and confidence were unable to finish the course without running away in tears. Nick was told to report to the dance studio Monday afternoon at 4 p.m. sharp. He wasn't sure how to dress, so he went with a blue polo shirt, tan trousers, and a pair of loafers. He made his way toward downtown. 10 minutes later, he entered the parking lot of the plaza where Madge had her boutique. He could see a young woman getting a curl and a set in the front window. As advertised, the dance studio was tucked in right beside it. The two establishments oozed femininity. This was foreign territory for him. Nick entered the studio through the main entrance. Inside, he stood in the foyer with a reception desk directly in front of him. Nobody was there when he arrived. Turning to his left, there was a wall display of ballet outfits. He hadn't realized how colorful and delicate dancewear was. He could not help getting closer and touching the pink lace tutu in front of him. Mesmerized by all the feminine finery on display, he hadn't noticed a young woman come up behind him. She was rather short but very fit, maybe in her mid-20s. She was wearing shiny blue yoga pants and crop top. Beautiful, aren't they? Are you interested in trying one on? She smiled mischievously. Startled, no, I was just looking. I'm here to see Ms. Dupont. You must be Nick. Madame has asked me to give you an orientation and show what the job entails. He was still stunned. Come along, dear. She extended her arm around his waist and nudged him forward. My name is Kirsten and I am Madame's assistant. Be forewarned, she does not suffer fools gladly. Best be a quick learner and do a good job. Nick nodded nervously. So, we have 3 dance studios. They have wooden floors which you will be expected to clean and polish regularly. The mirrored walls must be cleaned as well. Changing rooms cleaned. Garbage removed. And the tour went on. Kirsten could tell that Madame had hired yet another awkward, self-conscious boy. Well, at least it will be entertaining, she thought. I'll just have you sign some paperwork and you can start right away. Is that satisfactory, Nikki? That sounds great. Thank you, Kirsten. As the first week went on, Nick discovered the one thing that made the job enjoyable was being able to sneak peeks into the studios and see girls his age or a little younger in tight-fitting, colorful clothing gracefully moving about. He was drawn to their femininity. Of course, he had to be careful that nobody caught him leering. Up to this point, he still had not met Ms. Dupont. But every time he heard the name, it somehow triggered a foreboding feeling. It was Friday evening and he was finishing cleaning up in the changing room. He noticed a large bin behind the door in the changing room. Lost and found, it was labeled. Examining the bin more closely, he'd never seen anything like it. Piles of leotards, tights, shoes, and even some tulle skirts. His eyes almost popped out of his head. Being so close to all these wonderful feminine outfits took his breath away. He hesitated. Dare he take a closer look? He couldn't help himself. He plunged his arms into the bin and looked for the prettiest outfits. Nylon, lace, tulle, he put the material to his face. He could feel his cock swell. As Nick continued to rummage through the clothing, he wondered if there might be something close to his size. After tossing the clothing here and there, he came across a nylon mesh bag. In it was a spandex leotard in bright red along with a pair of shiny white tights and point shoes. His hands were trembling. The size was a woman's large. Oh, my. The very idea of touching, let alone trying something like this on, was taboo and therefore exciting to this innocent lad. Being 17 years old with raging hormones meant Nick was easily aroused by anything feminine. This was just too tempting to resist. He looked around as if anyone were in the building this late and quickly undressed. He held the tights in his hands and then sat down on a bench nearby. The feeling he was getting was completely foreign to him. But exciting! For his first time putting on tights, he did okay. The tight, stretchy material massaged his legs. And they fit reasonably well on his tall, lanky frame. Now for the leotard. His hands trembled more. Sliding his legs through the openings, he pulled the nylon garment up his legs. Up further, he could feel the thong back tug at his backside. Pulling the straps over his shoulder, he felt the soft nylon material caress his body. He tried on the point shoes, but they were just too tight for his big feet. This didn't stop him from prancing around and enjoying the tug of the nylon on his skin. It was like he was one of the girls he'd been watching all week, feeling what they felt as he caressed himself. Nick continued doing his chores, prancing from room to room dressed in the tights and leotard. The tug and caress of the material was just so exhilarating. When it came time to finish up and take out the garbage, he reluctantly took off his nylon outfit and returned to his regular clothes. If he weren't wearing shorts and a t-shirt, he'd have just covered himself up with his own clothes. Time to lock up. Instinctively, he knew the idea of taking the leotard and tights home with him was wrong. But the temptation was too strong to resist. In spite of the risk, he didn't consider the possibility of getting caught. He stuffed the delicates into his backpack and headed home. Just the thought of being able to touch the feminine finery again kept Nick in constant state of arousal on his walk home. When he got home, he raced up to his bedroom. After brushing his teeth and getting ready for bed, he had to put the leotard and tights on again. The slippery feeling lying in bed stayed with him until he fell asleep. But it was a fitful sleep. He found himself dreaming about ballet. He was going to work, wearing his leotard and tights under his jeans and shirt. Out of nowhere, Madge showed up in the studio and told him to get to ballet class. Why was she there? He was feeling frightened and excited. Madge escorted him to the change room. Nicky dear, off with those clothes. Hurry, you're late for class. And don't forget your tutu and point shoes. Without hesitation, Nick put on the beautiful pink tutu that was lying on the bench. As he inched it up his legs, he felt thankful for it hiding his raging erection. Soon he was mincing his way into the studio. The rest of the class, all girls and about 3 years younger than him, gave short excited claps as he entered. Madge had everyone line up in a row. Nick, being the tallest, stood in the middle. Everyone with the same outfit on, white tights, white leotard and pink tutu. Everyone was wearing bold makeup too, even Nick. This was no ordinary class, this was end-of-year recital. The curtains opened and there in front of the dancers were 2 rows of parents eagerly awaiting the show. "Oh, my God! My stepmom is here. What is going on?" Madge stood in front of the parents. "Thank you so much for coming, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you're all very proud of your ballerinas. Without further ado, let's begin our recital. All right, girls, let's begin with the epaulement." And on it went. Nick feeling light and feminine, twirling and leaping. "Nicky! It's time to get up. You've got a lot of chores to do today." Nick, startled by his stepmom, awoke from his dream. Sandy looked at his stepson, his face, red and still groggy from sleep. She looked at him a little more closely. Something looked odd. Were those shiny red straps over his shoulders? No, she must have been mistaken as she closed the door to his bedroom. She was not mistaken. And Nick had waken up to a big stain on the leotard and his bed sheets. It was another hot summer day. Saturday afternoon. Nick started his outdoor chores. Away he went cutting the grass in the backyard. As he was finishing, his stepmom came outside and brought out a pitcher of iced tea. Ah, just what he needed. After cleaning up, he made his way to the patio table to pour himself a refreshing drink. "Ah, Nicky dear. I made this for Madge and I. She'll be over shortly." Nick had a look of dejection on his face. "Oh, all right. Help yourself to a glass." Sitting down in the shade, he was savoring the drink when Madge arrived. She wore a tight tan bodysuit and a green tulle skirt over top. This was accompanied by a pair of sheer stockings and white sandals. "Oh, what a nice surprise. Nicky dear. You look absolutely hot and bothered. I understand you are enjoying your new job. Is that right, dear?" Yes, Ms. Cullimore. And thanks for getting the job for me." "Oh, don't mention it. I'll let you know when you can repay me the favor," as she smiled and winked at the young man. "Join us, will you, dear? I'm dying to hear about your job and what you think of Madame Dupont." "Aw, I've not met her yet. Sorry, I have to run." When Madame first began running the studio, there was a young woman working at the studio. She was the daughter of an acquaintance of Ms. Dupont. The young woman taught, of all things, an all-boys ballet class. Interestingly, the boys were not there on their own behest. Turns out her mother had a large network of friends who volunteered their sons for this class based on her reputation. Madame was very intrigued by this young woman and asked her to stay and continue teaching the class. Alas, she ended up moving out of the country. Adeline could not find a suitable replacement and she did not have the time for such a venture. Maybe one day Kirsten would take on this role, she thought. Kirsten had been working for Ms. Dupont now for almost a year. She was a very confident and assertive young woman. Madame took a liking to her immediately. And Kirsten enjoyed working for Ms. Dupont. She had moved into town after breaking up with her partner in the big city. She needed a new start. Kirsten could best be described as petite, but anyone who knew her, or took a close look at her physique, knew she was a tough customer. Her duties included managing the boutique in the front of the studio and assisting Ms. Dupont with administrative duties. Her preferred work attire included tight-fitting yoga pants, crop tops, and trainers. Madam? Kirsten knocks and opens the door to Ms. Dupont office. One of our students, Catherine Lamond, forgot her dance kit in the locker room last week. It's not in the lost and found. I thought maybe I ought to check our surveillance video to see if there was anything suspicious. You need to see this. Kirsten pulled up the video on her smartphone. The camera was aimed at the door of the locker room and the Landef bin. That's our new janitor coming in to clean the locker room. She fast-forwards the video here, his attention is drawn to the bin and he starts to rummage through the pile. It looks like a little pervert, touching all the lost clothing. That's very disappointing, Ms. Dupont said with a smirk. Just wait until you see this again. Fast-forwarding. Here. He has Catherine's kit in his hands. The little pervert starts to undress and put on her leotard and tights. Looks like we've got another sissy on our hands, Kirsten. And you know how much I like to put these boys in their place, don't you? Yes, indeed, Ms. Dupont. Kirsten couldn't help smile. She liked it too. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Please bring the little sissy to my office when he arrives for work. And not a word about this to anyone. Yes, Madam. Monday afternoon and Nick was off to start another work week. He was wearing his usual t-shirt and shorts since no one seemed to care what he wore. It's been 2 weeks already, he thought. After his recent adventure, he was really excited about coming to work. As he entered the studio, it looked like Kirsten was waiting for him. She wore a very serious face. Nikki, Madam wishes to see you. Come this way, she said, pointing down the hall. Oh no! Could it be that someone found out he stole the clothing? Oh, I'm going to lose my job already. What will I tell my stepmom? Wait, did she just call me Nikki? Kirsten knocked and entered, holding Nick's arm. Kirsten, please stay and close the door. Madam was sitting at her desk. She was wearing a gray pantsuit, her long legs outstretched and her black slingback heels placed atop her desk. As usual, her raven hair was tied back in a bun. She looked up and down at the boy with a look of disappointment. Have a seat, young man, pointing to a wooden chair directly in front of her desk. Nick nervously took a seat. It was not a comfortable chair. This was the first time he'd actually met Madame Dupont. So intimidated was he that he could barely look at her. She was a strong and confident woman. Madame slowly got out of her chair and walked around the desk. Her heels click-clacking in Nick's ear. Madame leaned back against the of her desk, directly in front of the boy. She stared into Nick's eyes. So, this is the new janitor, Kirsten, was all she said. Then silence. She then proceeded to get very close to Nick, hands on her waist, and slowly walked around him. Inspecting him. She flicked his hair. Squeezed his arm. You are a pretty boy. Soft flowing hair, girlish features. Madge was right. Stand up for me. Nick still hadn't spoken a word. He stood up as directed. Hands clasped in front of him, his face red. Was she testing him? Did she know about the leotard? Such a lithe frame. Delicate. Have you danced before? No, Miss Ahem. You are to address me as Madam. Is that clear? She ordered in a calm, confident tone. Yes, Madam. Miss Dupont proceeded to ask Nick a series of personal questions. Each answer was followed by a dismissive look. Last question, do you have a girlfriend? No, Madam. Have you ever had a girlfriend? No, Madam. Not surprised. She then took an envelope from her desk and tossed it over to him before he got up. Here is your paycheck, Nicholas. That will be all. And she quickly turned away from him and went back to her work. He was too relieved that he hadn't been caught to care about anything else. Nick was too afraid to go near the lost and found for days. He carefully carried about his duties and did whatever he could so not to get on the bad side of Madam. He did, however, still steal glances into the studio. It became a habit of his, looking through the glass door window and seeing all that femininity in one room. Then one afternoon, as he finished his little voyeurism, he heard a voice down the hallway. "Hey! You, boy!" Nick turned around. He pointed to himself as is to question. "Yes, you. Are there any other boys around?" "Come here." Nick reluctantly walked toward the tall, pretty girl who was wearing a hot pink leotard and white tights and tutu. In spite of her femininity, he was intimidated by her commanding presence. "Just what do you think you're doing leering at us girls?" The girl was standing akimbo, her dark eyes piercing the poor boy. I don't know what you mean," he lied. "You know what I mean. We've seen you fogging up the window outside the studio, gawking at us." He was caught. He looked down, too embarrassed to look at the girl. She came up close to him. She was a little shorter than him but still took his chin and forced him to look at her. "You're that Kramer kid, aren't you? My older sister was in one of your classes and told me about you. Kinda cute but nerdy." "I see it now." He said nothing. "If I catch you looking at us again, I'm going to report you to Kirsten." "I don't think you want me doing that." And with that, she was gone. Nick had to shake his head. All the women he encountered simply crushed him. He felt small and helpless. "He's been behaving himself, Madam. It looks like you really scared the pervert. Let's tempt our little butterfly. Tonight, have him sort through the lost and found and organize it by type of outfit. That should get him stirring in his loins, okay, Madam? I can't wait to see the video of this. One more thing to entice this sissy. Take one of our unitards from the boutique and put it in the bin. Make sure it's his size. Any color preference? How about that light pink number from Ballera?" Kirsten smiled at her boss. "Brilliant. There's no way the pervert will be able to resist the temptation." She went back to the boutique and managed to find the unitard in size L. It had a high-shine spandex body with long sleeves and capri legs. At the back was a cute keyhole opening. It wasn't an item they sold a lot of. Certainly not for ballet. But it was very sexy dancewear. His eyes will light up when he sees this. And when he tries it on, he will be ensnared in our trap. I can't wait, she thought. On Thursday, Kirsten got a hold of Nick before he started work. And before he could sneak around and leer at the girls in the dance class. Good grief. "Nikki, there is something extra Madam wants done tonight. Have you seen the lost and found bin in the locker room?" Nick wanted to protest being called Nikki. But instead he was too concerned about what Madam wanted with the lost and found bin. I'm not sure," he lied. "Where is it located?" The little lying pervert. "It's in the locker room. Madam wants to pare down the contents as it getting full. She wants you to sort the items. Do you know what a leotard is? Unitard? Tutu?" He was actually getting excited hearing Kirsten talking about these items that he'd become fascinated with. "I think so." Kirsten showed him the display in the boutique and pointed out the sort of items he'd be organizing. She could see his face turning red as she described their details. "All right. Once the classes are over, I want you to start on the lost and found. Is that clear?" "Yes, Kirsten, okay, little butterfly. Your trap awaits." Nick went about his duties, occasionally taking peeks into the studio as the dancers finished up their routines. They all looked so feminine and beautiful. He couldn't stop thinking about the new chore he had. He was actually being given license to sort through bundles of nylon, spandex, and lace. His hands were trembling. His penis was getting hard at the thought. With the studio closed and having got a head start on his regular duties, the time had come for him to work on Lost and Found. Of course, he didn't realize that Kirsten and Ms. Dupont were still in the building, nor that the two of them sat at Ms. Dupont's computer in her office, monitoring the surveillance camera. Okay, looks like Nicky is ready to sort the contents of the bin. It's just a matter of time before he takes the bait. Look at him. He's already flustered and red-faced just touching those leg warmers. Nick was given some plastic bags to put similar items into. The leg warmers looked like the easiest to start with. And this also served to leave the bin with mostly nylon niceties. In anticipation of sorting the leotards, his mouth was dry, his hands sweaty. With each item he held it up as if it were the most coveted possession. The thought crossed his mind about absconding with more dancewear. After the meeting with Ms. Dupont, though, he felt he dare not. It just wasn't right. Fumbling his way through the leotards and taking far too much time sorting, he came across the most beautiful outfit he'd ever seen. He thought he heard sounds from the hallway. He froze, looked around. Come on, dear. It's waiting for you. Once you touch it, you won't be able to put it down. It looks like he's too afraid to do anything, madam. Can he really be ready to put it away? No. I am very familiar with sissies. Once they have been exposed to the silky feel of women's garments, well, let's just say there's no going back. It becomes addictive. Just watch. Finally, Nick picked up the mauve unitard, holding it up high by the sleeves and letting it drape over the bin. He slipped his hand through the arm to feel the sheer nylon fabric. Tingles ran through his body. The two women watched and smiled to each other. I'd love to take this home, it's so feminine and beautiful. No one will notice, he tried to convince himself. Nick never had a lot of self-discipline and he could not resist trying it on. It was his size. Naked and trembling, Nick slid the sheer unitard up his legs and over his Nick Bing cock. Sliding the garment further up his body, he had to stretch it to get his arms through the waiting sleeves. The only thing left was to fasten the bands of the keyhole opening. With a little effort he managed to seal the deal. He was in a nylon cocoon. He couldn't believe how good it felt, the nylon slipping and sliding as he moved. Okay, our little lamb has taken the bait. Look how sweet he looks. Time for us to say hello to our sissy janitor Kirsten. Ms. Dupont had a very satisfied look. She calmly opened a drawer from her desk and grabbed a long wiry object. A quirt. The two quietly made their way down the hallway to the locker room. Meanwhile, Nick was in another world as he caressed his nylon-clad body. Well, what have we here, Kirsten? I'd say we have a sissy. A thieving sissy. Ms. Dupont was there standing in front of Nick, hands at her hips. The quirt hanging down beside her, her severe, statuesque presence sent waves of fear in Nick. She was wearing a tight white sleeveless blouse with black pencil skirt and black stilettos. I can explain. Nicholas, pray tell, how can you explain this? Other than to say you're a sissy. She noticed that he was obviously very aroused, as evidenced by his swollen member bulging from the nylon. The built-in bra added further to the spectacle. And before he could say anything, Kirsten, it looks like we've found our leotard thief. Indeed, they knew. Ms. Dupont slowly walked around the frozen boy, looking him up and down. She was carrying her quirt, lightly tapping it on the palm of her other hand. The poor boy was almost trembling with fear. She slowly went around and stood behind him, lightly tapping his nylon-covered ass a couple of times with her quirt. He bounced with every tap and tears of shame started to fall from his eyes. And he said he didn't dance, madam. Well, let's just see about that. But if you're going to be a dancer, we need to complete the look. Kirsten, would you give Nicholas here the Swan Lake finish? Meanwhile, madam stood in front of the frightened boy and took his chin by her thumb and forefinger. He could feel her warm breath on his face. I've dealt with many boys over the years, just like you, Nicholas. Pretty boys, you just cannot resist the feel of pretty things on your skin, can you, Nicholas? No, it's not like that. I won't do it again, I promise, madam. That's where you're wrong, Nicholas. You will do it again. And again. You see, once you start wearing pretty girly things, it's impossible to stop. And I will see to it that you get to live out your sissy dreams. You've already started the process, Nicholas. Now I am going to complete the picture for you. Kirsten returned with a beautiful headband. In her other hand she held a white pancake tutu. Kirsten, can you tie his hair back before putting on the headband? The headband was made of fine white feathers adorned with jewels in the front. Madam slowly and carefully took the headband and with her face just inches over Nick, wrapped the band around his head, clasping it in the back and ensuring the jewels were prominent up front. Are you enjoying this, Nicholas? Silence. I asked you a question. Why are you doing this? I don't want to wear all this. We know that's not true. We know you're a little sissy. Look, Kirsten, Nicholas here has a wet spot on his unitard. I still say he's a little pervert. Madam took the tutu from Kirsten and held it in front of Nick. By this time he was so confused and humiliated. His eyes were wet with tears. He was powerless to protest. It's a good thing we haven't added makeup to his face, madam. It'd be all ruined by his tears. What a sissy. Now, Kirsten, young boys like Nicholas can't help it. Then looking back at the boy, you know what's next, Nicholas? You can't be a ballerina without a tutu. Step into the opening here. Madam slowly slid the delicate skirt up his legs, making sure to tease him with her fingers in the process. Sliding it at high on his waist, she accidentally put her hand on his engorged penis and then squeezed hard until he gasped in pain. It was all he could do to control himself. Then, snap, she adjusted the skirt at his waist. He looked like a tall, awkward boy in ballet clothing. Madam stepped back, hands on her hips. She had a look of triumph as she smiled at her pathetic model. Kirsten was getting turned on watching Madam totally humiliate the boy. She'd heard stories of Madam doing similar things, but this was the first time seeing it. Arms at your side, hands out. To reinforce who was in charge, Ms. Dupont adjusted his arms by his side and directed his hands parallel to the ground. Now, Kirsten, some photos of our lovely sissy ballerina are in order. Nick tried to turn around and hide from the camera. But Madam was too quick. She grabbed him with her strong grip around his girlish upper arm and set him in front of the camera. Do not dare disobey me, Nicholas, she whispered into his ear. Before we go any further, you will need a pair of pointe shoes like a real ballerina. Here, slide these on Nicholas. They were gold satin with a soft sole. He could barely manage to get his feet in, his hands were trembling so much. Now, follow me. Madam proceeded out of the locker room. Her and Kirsten opened the door to the ballet studio and turned on the lights. He couldn't believe it. It was like he dreamed about, only he was the only ballerina. Seeing that you love ballet so much, we're going to begin your lessons. Stand beside this bar. Stand up straight. Chest out. Hold the bar with your left hand and face me. Nick didn't know what to do. He just stood there. Madam quickly walked up to him, he could feel her breath on his cheek. I thought you understood. It looks like some more correction is in order, Nicholas. I do not like students who do not pay attention. Now, you're going to place both hands on the beam. Madam forced him into position. Then she took the tutu and raised it above his waist. With Nick bending over slightly, Madam went to work. You will take this punishment and you will thank me. Is that clear, Nicholas? Smack! Madam administered the first strike of her quirt against his exposed backside. Is that clear? Yes. Yes, Madam, now that was a practice stroke. Let's begin. Count out each stroke with me. Smack. Oh, 1 inch at 10, Nick was in so much pain, he was crying uncontrollably. Please stop. Please. His face red with tears of shame and pain. That's not how you address me, is it, Nicholas? You know better. Now we have to start all over. Madam was enjoying the thrashing she was giving the boy. So much potential. But he had to learn who was the boss. Spare the rod, spoil the child. It had been a few years since she had the pleasure of administering this kind of discipline. She savored every moment. Smack. 1. Smack. 2. And on it went until Madam reached 20 strokes. By this time Nick's eyes were glazed over. He was almost numb to the pain now. Complete submission. Madam lowered the boy's tutu to its rightful position and had him stand up straight. Okay, with that out of the way, let's proceed. Feet pointing outward. Now bend down, Nicholas, knees pointing outward. With not a little pain, Nick tried to assume the positions. Madam used her quirt to correct his mistakes. 10 more, like that. While Kirsten takes more photos, I will introduce you to some basic ballet movements. I don't want to do this, he mumbled. What was that? I didn't hear you. Nothing, it was nothing, he panicked. It was something. Now tell me what you said. I said I didn't want to do this. Eyes looking downward and fearful of Madam's wrath. Of course you do. Why else would you be wearing a unitard and let us dress you as a ballerina? But... Smack. Madam slapped Nick on his cheek. I'm losing patience with you, Nicholas. There will be no more buts from you. There. I've added a little color to your cheeks. Now, let's begin. Legs together. Feet pointing out. Arms bent, hands in front of you. Eyes up front. Arms outstretched, right arm in front of you, right arm up over your head. Now the other arm. Eyes up front. Ms. Dupont showed no sign of pleasure nor gave Nick any indication of how he did. This routine went on for a half hour. By this time Nick was exhausted. There is no point in you doing any further of your work now. Collect your things and I'll drive you home. Nick exhaled deeply, grateful he was being released from Ms. Dupont's drills. He went back into the locker room to get his clothes and was looking where he could change. What do you think you're doing, Nicholas? No dilly-dallying. I'm being kind enough to drive you home. Let's go. But I need to change. Madam, don't be silly. What are you afraid of? I can't let me stepmother see me like this. Nicholas, it's too late for that. Can I please walk home, Madam? He mumbled. Running out of patience, Madam grabbed Nick by the ear and marched him outside. Oh. You're hurting me. No one disobeys me, Nicholas. You will learn. And soon. It was quite a sight. Nick dressed in full ballet regalia in the brightly lit parking lot. At this point he couldn't move quick enough and Madam practically dragging him. She opened the back door to her Mercedes and unceremoniously shoved the boy inside. As she was pulling out of the parking lot she made a phone call. Hello, Madge. The package will be arriving shortly. Nick managed to make out that she talked to Madge, but the conversation was too short to understand what she was saying. Ms. Dupont drove the short distance to Nick's house but instead parked in front of Madge's house. "Stay where you are, Nicholas." Ms. Dupont opened the back door and grabbed Nick by the arm and escorted him through the front gate of Madge's house. "But this is not my house, madam. Please, don't make me go inside. I won't do anything like this again." "Oh, Nicholas. You disappoint me. I thought you'd want to show off your new image to Madge and your stepmother." Nick's face went white. He stopped in his tracks. No. I can't. Please let me go." He pulled at Madam's hand, which was firmly grasped around his narrow arm. Nick couldn't break loose as hard as he tried. "You really are a weak sissy, Nicholas. So, we're going to go in and visit the ladies and you're going to show off your new outfit." The doorbell rang. Nick and Ms. Dupont standing side by side at the front porch. Who could that be at this late hour? Madge got up from the living room and went to the door. She smiled to herself. "Oh, what a lovely surprise, Adeline. What brings you here, and, oh, my, who is this? Nikki? Is that you, Nikki? Why are you dressed up like a ballerina, my dear?" Nick tried to hide, but Miss Dupont firmly guided Nick forward into the foyer so Madge could get a better look. He was virtually in tears. Nick stood there shamefaced, his face looking at the floor, his hands wrapped around his chest. Madame stood right behind Nick, with her hands on his shoulders. "Nicholas here has taken a liking to ballet. He very much likes to wear leotards and tights. He's just too shy to show anyone, so I thought I should help him." Just then Sandy came into view. "What on earth? Nikki, why are you dressed like that? My God! I cannot believe it. How long have you been keeping this disgusting secret?" Sandy grabbed Nick by the ear and hauled him home from Madge's house, where he was fully dressed in ballet regalia. His face was crimson from the humiliation of being forced to dress as he was and it being on display in front of his stepmom and his neighbor. He couldn't speak. "I am so embarrassed. How could you? Sneaking around in girls' clothes. But Ms. Dupont forced me." "That's not what I heard. You've been trying on girls' clothes at work and stealing them." All he could do was drop his head in humiliation. "Go up to your room and go to bed. I need time to think of what to do with you." The next morning, Sandy knocked on Nick's bedroom door and opened it. "I want every stitch of girly clothes you've got stashed in your room." Nick was barely awake. "Ah, okay. Can I get changed first?" "No. I'll give you 1 minute." And she closed the door. A minute later Nick handed Sandy the leotards, tights and the rest of the ensemble he'd acquired. "That better be it, Nikki." She scowled and left. A little later, Sandy was on the phone with Madge. "Madge, I can't begin to tell you how shocked I was to see my stepson dressed as a sissy ballerina." "What is going on? Did you know about this?" "Sandy, my dear, it would appear that Nikki is a sissy. Madge may have exaggerated things given the influence of Adeline and her assistant. But it was clear that he liked soft, feminine clothing. I have seen this before. You probably don't know this, but once a boy has been exposed to soft feminine clothing and shows an attraction toward it, there is no turning back. He's hooked. I know this must be a shock for you, but the only advice I have is for you to accept that Nick likes to wear girls' clothes and carry on accordingly." Sandy was at a loss for words. How did this happen? Why was I stuck with a sissy? Can I even continue to have him in my house? Carry on accordingly? You will discover that having a sissy can actually be a benefit to you. You mentioned that he was getting to be obstinate lately. Well, imagine how much easier your life would be if dear Nikki were to assume all the domestic duties. Of course he'd have to wear the appropriate clothing, if you know what I mean. You mean I should just accept that my stepson is a sissy? Let him stay in my house? Yes, that is exactly what I am saying. You do not realize how much easier it will be to manipulate Nikki and benefit from this fetish of his. You have all the leverage. Sandy thought about this for a while. The more she thought about it, the more it made sense to let nature take its course. If Nikki really is a sissy, he will act out again. As Madge suggested, she could make this work to her advantage. Nick came down to the kitchen, wearing something more in line with his sex blue cotton pajamas and a plaid bathrobe. Nikki, I've given this a lot of thought. I'm not convinced that you can enroll in college in September. You have no job and no money. What kind of future do you have? Don't tell me you're going to become a ballerina? She almost spat those words out. That stung. Nick couldn't bear to look at his stepmother. Your father, bless his soul, put away money for your education. But in his will it said that I would be the trustee of these funds until you reach 21. That means I must approve of where you go to further your education. I am not convinced you are ready for college given this turn of events. But I had my heart set on going to college, he mumbled. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal women's clothing from Ms. Dupont's place of business. No one forced you to wear a leotard and tights. It must mean you like to wear girls' clothes. I swear, I won't wear girls' clothes again. I'm not so sure. Apparently once a boy gets a taste of wearing silky girly clothes, they will not be able to stop. I promise. I won't wear girls' clothes again. I understand that some boys can't help themselves. Maybe you're just a sissy and I didn't even know it. I was just curious. It won't happen again. Well, if you insist that you will never wear or be in possession of girls' clothes in this house, then I will take you on your word. I'll see how things go, and if you behave, I'll reconsider my decision regarding college plans. Nick was visibly relieved. Thank you, Sandy. But if I see any signs otherwise, there will be no turning back. Nick wasn't sure what she meant by that, but he was happy he had a second chance. On Sunday, Sandy went to visit Madge. Sandy always admired Madge and her style. She herself had a lot of nice clothes but felt uninspired to wear them. Today she was dressed in a pair of white linen shorts and blue short-sleeve blouse, while Madge welcomed her in wearing a tan pencil skirt and white satin long-sleeve blouse, legs adorned with nylon stockings of course, along with white pumps. Have a seat, Sandy. Pray tell me what happened with you and Nikki. I gave your advice a lot of thought and you're probably right about Nikki. I pretended to be a little more understanding with the boy yesterday. I even suggested I'd reconsider allowing him to go to college if he kept away from girly clothes. Oh Sandy, you do realize that there's now little chance he can stay away from feminine clothing. I know. But I thought I'd offer him a carrot and see what happens. Make him think he has control of the situation. The more I think about it, the more I like the idea of him being powerless and unable to control his sissy urges. Madge smiled at her neighbor. Sandy, you don't wear a lot of fancy clothing or sexy lingerie, do you? Oh, I do have a nice wardrobe, Madge. It's just that, I don't know. Sandy responded defensively. My advice is you start wearing sexier clothes. On top of that, show off your lingerie. Show off? To whom? How and why would I do that? What I mean is, expose Nikki to seeing you dressing sexy around the house. He's a teenager with raging hormones. Let's see if he really can ignore the allure of women's frilly things. Have your lingerie drying outside on a rack, for example. Believe me, this will really tantalize and frustrate him. This will accelerate things, trust me. Oh Madge, you devil. The idea of tormenting his stepson was especially appealing after his display the other night. This episode triggered a realization in Sandy that she had grown tired of Nick's presence in the house. Trouble was she was greedy, she was not prepared to pay for his room and board at school. And since it was unlikely that he would earn enough money, she was stuck with him. She couldn't shake her feeling of disgust at seeing him dressed as a ballerina. It was more than likely she was going to have to get used to it and she'd have to make the most of it. Oh, and by the way, I was chatting to an old friend of mine earlier. I mentioned Nikki in a ballerina outfit. Madge. Oh, no, don't worry. I didn't mention any names or give details. But what she told me then was very interesting. What did she tell you? There used to be a boys' ballet school in town. Even parents, mothers really from other towns would bring their boys to the class. Looks like Nicky missed his chance. Sandy smirked. I better run. Thank you again, Madge, for your advice. After meeting with Sandy, Madge gave Ms. Dupont a call. Hello, Adeline. That was quite a spectacle the other night. Tell me, what are your plans for dear Nicky? With all that you've invested in him, I gather you'll keep him working for you. Absolutely. I see a lot of potential for Nicky and I wouldn't want to see it go to waste. Tell me, what did Nicky's stepmom say about all this? It looked like she was going to throw the poor boy out. Yes. Naturally, Sandy was appalled at seeing her stepson dressed as a ballerina. But I told her that there were certain advantages to having a sissy at home. She seemed to warm to the idea. We're going to make the boy believe he can control himself and not be tempted by girls' clothes. Madge smiled mischievously. But we're going to ensure that he fails. Marvelous, Madge. I don't know about at home, but at work Nicky is going to become fully ensconced in the world of femininity. Madge grinned. Let me know if I can help in any way, Adeline. Nick got a phone call Monday morning. It was Ms. Dupont. Nicky, in case there was any confusion, I expect you to report to work this afternoon as usual. And with that the phone call ended. Nick was dumbstruck. How could he go back to work after what happened? He really didn't want to go. He was too embarrassed. But he was too afraid of what might happen if he didn't show up. Who was on the phone, Nicky? That was Ms. Dupont. She wants me to report to work this afternoon. You're kidding. After what happened the other night? He had no answer. Well, that's good news. You can make yourself useful and earn some money. Nick was less convinced. But he certainly did not want to jeopardize the arrangement he had with his stepmom. He had to make sure he was never seeing girls' clothes again. He left the house with a feeling of unease, but also of excitement and anticipation. Would he be able to carry on like nothing happened? Wearing his usual short-sleeve shirt and shorts, he made his way to the studio. He opened the door to the studio and Kirsten was there waiting for him. Nicky, let's get started. She guided Nick to the change room. Ms. Dupont has decided she wants a more professional look for her cleaning staff. So, we have a new uniform we expect you to wear from now on. I'm sure you'll love it. Now, strip. Nick hesitated. Oh, come on. I've seen it all already. Now off with your clothes. Underwear too. Standing in front of Kirsten, he felt a pang of excitement. He tried his best to hide things with his hands. Put this on first. Kirsten held up a pair of nude high-waisted control thong panties. This will help hide what little maleness you have, darling. Reluctantly, Nick slid the nylon material up his legs. He soon discovered that this panty was tight and pressing against his cock. Stuff that little penis of yours between your legs. The panty will help keep things in place. Next, Kirsten took out something from a garment bag, wrapped in paper on a hanger. Taking off the wrapping and holding it up, one could see it was a full-length jumpsuit, or something a mechanic might wear. Hardly. It was pink, with full sleeves and legs. The spandex blend offered a shine to it. How was he supposed to get into that? Kirsten gave the outfit to Nick and he could see the zipper at the back. Step into your uniform, Nicky. Nick took the jumpsuit and sat down to pull it up his legs. It was another tight fit. They looked like leggings. He was secretly reveling in the feeling of drawing the fabric up over his legs. He was glad he had the panties on because the jumpsuit slid smoothly up past his waist. Drawing it up to his chest, he put his hands through the arm openings. This is when the suit really clung to his body and pulled up the crack of his ass. He tried to hide it, but it was clear to Kirsten that Nicky was a sissy and he was loving the feeling of the jumpsuit. Let's lift that collar now. Kirsten then took some gel and applied it to the side of Nick's curly head of hair. The finishing touch was a wide white belt that tied everything together. I'm glad you like your new outfit, Nicky, because this will be what you wear to work from now on. I don't want to see you dressed in any other clothing when you're here working. We have 2 more of these and we expect you to wash and take care of them. But I can't take these home. My stepmom will kill me. Well, darling, you're just going to have to hide these from her then. That's not my problem. Now put on these ballet flats and get to work. He slid his feet into the matching pink satin ballet flats. They fit like a glove. As he got up, Kirsten smacked his nylon-covered behind so hard that he yelped in pain. And off he hobbled to work. To his immense chagrin, the same girl who challenged him a few weeks ago appeared. Her eyes opened wide when she saw Nick in the pink jumpsuit. Hey, Kramer! Nick's attempt to sneak off failed. Sarah Sullivan's sister came up close to him, fingering his collar dismissively. She looked him up and down with a smirk on her face. Just what the heck are you wearing? It looks like that jumpsuit was plastered on you. And pink? Why on earth are you dressed like this? This is my janitor's uniform from now on. You sure you didn't request to wear it? It looks sexy with that shimmer. And so tight. Nick turned beet red. Well, I don't imagine you'll be getting anywhere close to me and my classmates wearing that outfit. What a relief! As the girl left, she couldn't help but pinch Nick's butt. It didn't help that the jumpsuit hugged his butt so tightly. It was an inviting target. Nick decided to keep away from the classes until the studio closed. Being alone now, he could relax, and he began to realize that he very much liked the feel of his jumpsuit. The way it clung to his body and the occasional slip and slide of the fabric against his skin, he could get used to that. Before long, it was time to wrap it up and go home. He left 2 of the uniforms at work and took the one he was wearing plus the panty home with him. Needless to say, he had to be careful not to let his stepmom see these clothes. The next morning, Sandy and Nick were at the breakfast table. So, Nicky, how was work yesterday? I didn't hear you coming last night. It was okay. The usual stuff. Well, I must say I am still surprised that Ms. Dupont let you keep your job. I want you to show me that you're mature enough to hold this job and not get into any more trouble. Nick didn't say anything. He preferred not to talk about it. As Sandy left the table, Nick looked up from his cereal. His stepmother looked different. Since working at the dance studio, he was paying more attention to how women dressed. Today Sandy was wearing a high-waisted green satin bubble skirt along with a beige sleeveless cotton top and tan pumps. She looked hot. The week went by and Nick began to look forward to going to work. The reason? He enjoyed wearing his uniform. It was like a hunger that could only be satisfied by wearing feminine clothes. The craving grew to the point where he was even tempted to wear the panties at home. The thought was very thrilling for him, a sense of risk and excitement. No, he'd better not. Meanwhile, his stepmom continued to wear sexier clothes, and this both bewildered and aroused Nick. After her husband died, Sandy resorted to casual and modest clothing. Now this was quite a change. Sandy smiled to herself knowing that Nikki was staring at her much more. Back at the studio, Ms. Dupont was in her office doing her month-end accounting. Enrollment had been flat for a few months now. She began contemplating ways to improve numbers. Kirsten knocked on the half-open office door. "Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Dupont. There is a young woman in the lobby who would like to speak with you. She doesn't have an appointment and I told her that you most likely wouldn't see her without one. But she said that you'd want to meet her." Really? Well, I could use a little break from all these numbers. Show her in. Hello, Ms. Dupont. I'm sorry to come without an appointment. My name is Laura Hutchinson and I've just moved into town. I've heard a lot about you. Ms. Dupont studied the very attractive young woman standing in the doorway. She had long auburn hair tied in the back in a ponytail. Dark, confident eyes. She was dressed rather casually in black yoga pants, ballet flats, and an oversized beige blouse. You have you? Take a seat, Ms. Hutchinson. So, what brings you to my office? 2 things, if I may. First, I have extensive ballet experience and I have ABT teacher training program through level 3. I wish to apply for a position at your studio. There was something about this young woman that reminds me of myself when I was her age. Certainly not lacking in confidence. Second, I have 2 character references who are old acquaintances of yours. Oh, really? And who might these women be? She assumed they had to be women. Ms. Hennessy and Ms. Ellesmere. They spoke highly of you and your studio. Madame's face turned flush for a moment. She hadn't heard from these women in years. How did they know where I was? Laura noticed the subtle change in Ms. Dupont's demeanor. She was told to expect some surprise on the part of Madame. The women didn't elaborate, but they told Laura that Ms. Dupont owed them a favor or 2. Well now, what is it you really want? Ms. Dupont's tone became stern. With all due respect, Ms. Dupont, I am here with sincere intentions. But if I may be so bold, I come with a certain specialty. Okay, I'm waiting. Laura moved a little closer and with a serious face, I specialize in teaching boys ballet classes. I've been doing most of it on contract, but I would dearly love to develop a bigger class. I see from your website that you don't offer anything for boys, but I was told that this studio did offer such a program in the past. So, you've been doing some research, eh? What makes you think there is a demand for such a program? Ms. Dupont was certainly not opposed to the idea. Quite the contrary. It was something on her wish list, and lo and behold, here was an instructor, presumably capable of such work. My colleagues are well connected and I believe you share a certain philosophy with them, us. They told me in this town in particular, there are plenty of eager mothers wanting their boys to be taught in the finer things. She left it at that. I see you have your resume with you. I will take a look at it as time permits. Ms. Dupont got up from her chair to indicate the meeting was over. Have a good day, Ms. Hutchinson. Thank you for your time, madam, and off Laura went. As she was about to exit, she caught a glimpse of someone in a shiny pink jumper. It looks like an androgynous boy. Strange. I think I'm going to like it here, she said to herself. Later, Kirsten, Ms. Dupont, called in her assistant. Get me the files on boys' ballet class that was running when I got here. I want to see the enrollment numbers, revenue, everything you can find. Yes, madam. Ms. Dupont was impressed with the confident young woman who just left. Despite her aloof display, Madame was intrigued enough to look at the resume. She couldn't help see her younger self in Laura. 12 years of classical ballet teaching certificate, extensive sports participation, 5 years of behavioral modification under the tutelage of Catherine Ellesmere. Member of the DDD Women's Society. Yes, this is someone who could work for me and someone worth mentoring. In her previous life, Madame had become an expert in the care and training of boys and young men. Back then her work was considered bizarre, some considered it deviant. Today, society seemed more ready to have women take control. The appearance of Nikki and now this young woman, maybe it was a sign to get back in the swing of things, she pondered. On Saturday, Nick set out to mow the lawn, one of his weekend chores. It was another warm sunny day with a refreshing breeze. Here again he was tempted to slip into his panties before putting his shorts on, but upon sober second thought, decided it was too risky with his stepmom in the house. As he was about to start on the back lawn, he saw his stepmom carry a laundry basket outside. As he was making his turn toward the house with the mower, his eyes popped out of his head when he saw all the beautiful lingerie being hung up on a drying rack. Plenty of satin, lace, and nylon. Nikki! Could you please keep an eye on my clothes? I don't want the wind blowing my lingerie away. Ah, okay. Take a long look, Nikki, she said to herself. And so when Nick pushed the mower in the direction toward the laundry, he felt excitement and he could barely concentrate on keeping a straight cut, then anticipation when he had to turn and go the other way. He started hoping that some of the lingerie would get blown off the rack so he could pick it up and touch it. He decided to take a short break from his job and sat on one of the patio chairs to rest, right next to his stepmother's lingerie. Why am I so turned on by my stepmom's underwear anyway? Meanwhile, Sandy watched Nick from the kitchen window from time to time and could clearly see the plan was working. I can see the desire in his eyes, she said to herself. It's only a matter of time before he cracks. Let's get him even more flustered. Nikki, I just remembered I have an errand to run. Would you be a dear and take down my laundry and take the basket inside when you're finished with the lawn? Nick hesitated. I wouldn't know how to do it, he managed. Oh, Nikki! My clothes won't bite. Just fold each item nicely and put them in the basket. Now I have to run. When Nick finished his mowing, his focus turned to all the delicate nylon hanging on the rack. He was enraptured with the prospect of touching it all. Grabbing the basket, he started with the top layer of stockings and pantyhose. Various shades of beige and black. Gently he gathered up the nylon and folded each pair, carefully placing them in the basket. The thought of actually sliding a pair up his legs made him shiver with excitement. He knew the risk was too great and willed himself to press on. Next he touched his first bra. There were 4 nylon mesh and lace bras hanging there. He couldn't help it. He brought the silky soft cup to his cheek. His cock was swollen. Well, hi Nikki. Madge popped her head through the gate on the side of the house. I was looking for your stepmother, but just what are you doing? I assume this is Sandy's lingerie and not yours. So, why were you holding that black satin bra up to your face? She asked me to take these off and fold them into the basket. Indeed. Madge dismissed his answer. Nick eventually tried to fold the bra, but Madge stepped in. She took one of the bras from the rack and demonstrated. If you're going to learn to handle lingerie, you need to know how to fold them properly. Now, take the bra and fold in two like this. She folded the bra between the two cups. Then gently stuff one cup into the other like this and fold the bands across the cups. Nick muddled through with an acceptable series of folds. You need more practice with folding bras if you're going to be handling lingerie in the future. In the meantime, let's move on to panties. Nick was in a daze by now. Madge showed him how to handle the rest panties and garter belts. She secretly relished teasing the boy, alluding to how he would need to practice more and how unfortunate it was that men couldn't appreciate these luxury articles. Oh, but of course. Almost talking to herself, pretending to forget. You have some idea, don't you? Having worn a complete ballerina outfit. Perhaps the most feminine of all outfits. Nick said nothing. There. We're all done folding Sandy's lingerie. I trust you'll be able to do this all on your own next time. I must be off. Please tell your stepmother I dropped by, will you, Nicky dear? I will, Madge. Nick then took the laundry basket inside. He thought he'd better take them out of sight lest he be tempted to do something risky like try on something. As he was dropping the basket off in Sandy's room, he heard come up the stairs. "Aw, Nicky, what were you doing in my room?" Oh. Aw, I was just dropping off your laundry basket." Good, good. I almost forgot, she lied. Thank you for doing that. Let me see how you did with the folding. I should have shown you. She examined the folded finery. It looks like you did a splendid job, Nicky. Maybe I should have you take care of my laundry from now on, she teased. That night, it was all Nick could do to try and sleep. The thoughts of touching all that lingerie was so exciting that he put on a pair of his control panties from work, instead of pajamas. He knew he was taking a risk wearing them in the house, but that made it even more exciting. Monday arrived and Nick felt enough excitement as he thought about donning his janitor's uniform. Meanwhile at the studio, Ms. Dupont was in her office, leaning back in her chair, her black pumps atop her desk. "Kirsten, please call Ms. Hutchinson. Tell her I want to see her tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. "Yes, Ms. Dupont." At precisely 2 o'clock, Kirsten escorted Laura into Ms. Dupont's office. Good afternoon, Ms. Hutchinson. Have a seat. Would it be okay with you if you called me Laura? I'm just not used to being addressed so formally. Laura was dressed in a coffee-colored sleeveless satin and mesh bodysuit along with tight black leather pants. I have looked at your resume and it is quite impressive. You are clearly very fit and athletic. And I see that in addition to your ballet instruction qualifications, you have a degree in psychology. Tell me, what made you decide on this discipline? Well, madam, I've always been interested in how the mind works. I confess I like to apply what I learn in everyday life. Tell me more. I like to uncover what's inside people's heads. Discover what motivates them, even try and find their strengths and weaknesses. Give me an example. Let's see, about 7 years ago, this was before I went to college, my mother introduced me to her friend's son. He was kinda cute. Anyway, I have always enjoyed teasing boys and I could tell he was submissive. I proceeded to dismantle the thin veneer of masculinity he had and teach him about his softer feminine side. Expose his vulnerability. Laura realized she was revealing more about herself than she intended, but she had it on good authority that this was something that Madame was well acquainted with. Carry on. Well, I used my feminine power and molded him into a sissy and made him infatuated with me. From there I enticed the boy into becoming a lady's maid. Very interesting. And what became of this boy? I still see him from time to time, but he is now in the employ of one of Anne's friends as a maid, of course. I have no issues with your hobby of emasculating boys. In fact, if I hire you, I would encourage it. I promise you, you won't regret hiring me, madam. Here's what I'm going to do. I want you to prove to me that there is a market for boys' ballet. If you can recruit at least 12 students, and I don't care how, then you've got a job here. Now, let's give you a tour of my studio. Laura gave a huge smile. She knew she could do it. Ms. Dupont took Laura through the various dance rooms, some with classes in progress. As they were near the end of the tour, Laura was giddy with anticipation. This is an amazing studio, madam. It would be a privilege to work here. You know what you have to do now, don't you? Adeline winked. Just then Nick came out of the change room, dressed in his now routine pink work overalls. Oh good, Ms. Dupont called out. Nikki, I'd like you to meet Ms. Laura Hutchinson. Laura's eyes grew wider. So this was the little fairy in the jumper. It's nice to meet you, Nick. She decided to gamble. She was going to demonstrate to Ms. Dupont how she dealt with these boys. With her usual assertive movements, she came right up into Nick's space, her nose close up to his chin. She then clasped both sides of his upturned collar, her eyes boring into his. Nicky. That's a cute name. And I love your outfit. So form-fitting and so feminine. Nick found himself backing up against the wall with nowhere to escape. He looked at Ms. Dupont for help. She just stood to the side with her arms crossed and smiled. What is it that you do here, Nicky? You're obviously not a dancer. Not with these clothes. Laura began to push up against the hardness that was protruding from his uniform. I'm the janitor. It looks like you belong in a beauty salon with that outfit. Turn around. Hands above your head. I want to see the complete picture. Ms. Dupont. May I be excused? I have a lot of work to do. Nicky. You know better. When a woman tells you to do something, you do it. Now do as Ms. Hutchinson says. With Laura just a breath away, Nick clumsily turned around. Laura stepped back. My, what a lovely figure you have. So slim. Oh, and the way that jumper rides up your cute little butt. So sexy. And those long legs, I would love to see you in my ballet class. That could be arranged, my dear. But you know what you have to do first. Now I just need you to sign something for me before you leave. As they were about to leave, Laura gave Nick a big slap on his nylon-covered ass. Oh. I hope you didn't mind me teasing one of your staff, Ms. Dupont. Sometimes I can't help myself when I see a cute boy. That's quite all right. He needs to understand that women must be obeyed. Just don't ruin the poor dear. In due time, Laura said to herself. Why was everyone smacking me on the butt? Nick was feeling more and more powerless in front of these women. This was stirring some confusion in his mind. Why was he getting aroused when women humiliated him? Nick had finished his work for the evening. Entering the change room, he opened his locker only to discover his clothes were gone. In their place was a white tutu and tights ensemble. Who would try and play such a joke on me? I bet it was that Sullivan girl. He frantically looked for this clothes, but they were nowhere to be found. What was he going to do? Part of him was mesmerized by what he saw. Secretly, he wanted to embrace this most feminine of feminine outfits. But reality hit in the face. He couldn't go home in a tutu. But neither was what he was wearing going to be welcomed by his stepmom. He had no choice but to take a chance and sneak into his house with his overalls on. Pray that his stepmom was asleep. Fortunately, it was dark as he made his way home. He made sure he kept away from the well-lit streets. If only he has something to cover himself up with. By the time he got home, it was 10:30. He hoped Sandy would be in bed by now as he quietly entered the house through the back door. Slinking his way through the kitchen in his ballet flats, he saw the safety of the stairs and his path to safety. "Oh, Nikki. I need to speak with you," came Sandy's words from the den. Sandy entered the hallway and to her shock, saw Nick in his pink jumper and ballet flats, his work uniform. What on earth? A look of shock and disgust was painted on Sandy's face. When he heard his stepmom call from the den, he tried to make it up the stairs, but he was too late. Stop right there. Nick couldn't bear to face his stepmom. He knew there'd be hell to pay. What did I say about never wearing women's clothing in this house again? Nick was silent and once again completely embarrassed, dressed as he was in front of his stepmom. Don't remember? Well, I'll tell you. I told you that if I ever saw you in possession or wearing women's clothes, there would be no turning back. And this here is definitely not men's wear. But Ms. Dupont told me to wear this for work. You're not at work anymore. Take off that thing. Okay, I'll go get changed. No. Right here, right now. Nick felt powerless to refuse. He took off his belt and unzipped the jumper. Sliding it down, he revealed the high-waisted control panty underneath. Good God, Nikki. Sandy shook her head, her hands on her hips. Standing there with just his panties, he waited for his stepmom to deliver the punishment. Sandy flicked her wrist at him in dismissal. Take your uniform and go to bed. I need to think about what to do with you and whether you can stay in this household. The next day, Nick spent the morning feeling anxious about his punishment. He went downstairs, but Sandy was not at home. Afternoon came and he was almost relieved that she was still out. He tucked his uniform and panties into his backpack and headed to work. Sandy spent the morning at Madge's, chatting with her about the latest episode. Madge did her best to calm things down. Sandy dear, there are worse things for your stepson to be interested in. And as I've said before, you have a great deal of leverage on the boy. I'm all ears, Madge. I tell you what, let me call Ms. Dupont. After all, she is the one who started all this. A short while later, the two women were off to see Ms. Dupont. Kirsten greeted them in the lobby and escorted them to Madame's office. Come in, ladies. Madame Dupont, it's nice of you to invite me. Ms. Dupont was wearing a crisp tan pantsuit and a white satin blouse. She seemed to float in the air as she walked. Motioning the ladies to the corner of her office, they each took seats in plush armchairs. I imagine you must have been shocked to see your stepson dressed in women's clothes again. Maybe it seems wrong to you, but let me assure you, there are many boys who enjoy the feeling of wearing female attire. Madge nodded to Sandy. When opportunities like this arise, I believe in bringing out boys' latent desire and encouraging them to embrace their feminine side. You have encountered this sort of behavior before? Ms. Dupont smiled. Ms. Kramer, you would not believe how many such boys I have encountered. Madge smiled knowingly. Sandy was very curious about what she had planned for her stepson and whether indeed she could do anything about it. You see, I am quite attuned to recognizing, how shall I say, feminine boys. And I have extensive experience in the care and handling of these creatures. What do you mean by the care and handling? In the past, I specialized in behavioral modification practices. Today, it's more of a hobby. Sandy was even more confused. I work on boys and young men. The first step is to make them feel insecure and question their masculinity. That is where Nikki is now. Depending on how masculine the boy thinks he is determines how long it takes to break down their ego. When that veneer is taken from them, I begin to mold them into loyal and well-behaved sissies. Many of them move on to live rewarding lives in the service of women. Madge is familiar with some of my past projects. Oh my God. That sounds so ominous. You're not suggesting molding Nikki, are you? I am. She paused. I see great potential in your stepson, Ms. Kramer. But if I am to proceed with my program, I would like to have your consent. If you do consent, please know that there is no turning back. Sandy was a little wary given the tone of the conversation. I believe it's in Nikki's best interest. And, I would say, yours. It seems like drastic action. Being attracted to women's clothes is one thing. I don't know. Madge chimed in. Sandy, remember I told you that Nikki could help you around the house, sort of like a maid. And following Ms. Dupont's program, he won't be wanting to pursue college. This had Sandy intrigued. No college meant she wouldn't have to fund his tuition. Having Nikki do the housework was a bonus. I can see that you're apprehensive, Ms. Kramer. Trust me, I only have Nikki's best interest in mind, she lied. Say I agree to this. What are you looking for from me? Okay, the next step is the removal of all traces of his male self. I want you to remove all signs of masculinity from your house. He is already attracted to women's clothes. So we start with his clothing. Out with his boy clothes. In with girl clothes. Sandy looked worried. Can I really go ahead with this? If you believe this might scare him off, we can do this a little more gradual. It's a bit like fishing. We know Nikki is hooked. We just need to land him. After not much further consideration, Sandy agreed. Okay, let's do it. Now, just to be clear. You've given me permission to feminize you, son. You understand that, Ms. Kramer? Yes. You have my permission. I'm actually going through with this, Sandy thought. Ms. Dupont smiled in response. She should have felt worried about her stepson, but somehow Sandy felt a sense of relief after making this decision. Had she known what would become of him, she probably would not have agreed to put Nick in the hands of Ms. Dupont. Why don't you and Madge make plans for a shopping trip with Nikki tomorrow? The sooner the better. That sounds like a plan, Madge answered. I'll invite Nikki to pay a visit to my salon. Meanwhile, Nick went to work and probably just missed seeing Madge and his stepmom. He was back into his pink jumpsuit and that made him feel good. Try as he might, he could not avoid running into Laura. It seemed like she was stalking him and never resisted invading his personal space. She would seductively stare at him until he looked away, all the while touching his outfit. With his shift finally over, he headed home. By the time Nick went to bed, he still hadn't spoken to his stepmother about the other night. Needless to say, he had a restless sleep. What was his stepmother going to do with him? Maybe I should just move out. But where would I go? Come morning, he was in no hurry to go downstairs. When he entered the kitchen, he saw his stepmom and Madge deep in conversation. Ah, Nikki dear. So nice to see you. Nikki, I've been discussing your situation with Madge. Oh, brother. Does everyone need to know? It is clear that you like wearing women's clothing. Remember what I told you, if I caught you wearing women's clothes again, I wasn't going to pay for your college. But it wasn't my fault. No matter. I've decided that if you like women's clothes so much, that you cannot resist wearing panties and such, then we need to reconsider your wardrobe. What do you mean? What I mean is, you're going to go shopping. Madge has kindly offered to take you to her shop and she's going to get you everything you need to make you feel more feminine. Nick was flabbergasted. She really meant it. How am I going to get out of this? Now, get dressed. Don't keep Madge waiting. Nick was in a bit of a trance as he went back to his bedroom to change. Let's go, dear. We'll take my car. Madge owned a ladies' lingerie boutique and hair salon located right next door to Ms. Dupont's dance studio. She parked her Cadillac convertible in her reserved spot next to the entrance. As Nick reluctantly got out of the car, Madge took Nick's hand and they walked into the shop, arm in arm. The shop was buzzing with activity. Unusual, given that it was morning in the middle of the week. Entering, Nick was overwhelmed by the femininity of it all. Racks and racks full of panties, bras, and all sorts of shapewear. And off in the distance was what looked like a beauty salon. When he managed to finally take a breath, he took in the perfume-scented store. It was intoxicating. Madge took the boy to the sales counter and introduced him to some of her staff. Debbie was the youngest of the sales team, probably in her early 20s. She was tall and slim with blonde hair. She wore a fitted cream blouse with lace detail along with a high-waisted navy pleated skirt. Monica was one of the most experienced sales lady and dressed a lot like Madge. Dark hair neatly coiffed with a large bun in the back of her head, she was a professional sales lady with an air of sophistication about her. She wore her usual white satin blouse and gray knee-length pencil skirt. Being old school, she didn't take kindly to boys wearing women's lingerie. Good morning, ladies. I'd like to introduce you to Nicky, my neighbor's stepson. Nicky here has discovered a fondness for women's clothing, in particular, lingerie. So, we're going to outfit him with some of our most feminine apparel. How does that sound? Nick wanted to hide. Madge's conversation and Nick's presence did not escape the notice of the customers nearby. Some looked on with bemused smiles, some with frowns. An older lady gasped in disbelief. Madge, if you don't mind, I'll tend to our female customers. Monica emphasized the word female and hustled over to help the older lady. Debbie came up close to Nick and gently touched his wrist. Oh, Nicky, you're so lucky. Just look around you. Have you seen anything more exquisite? Madge smiled. She knew Debbie loved handling the few awkward boys who came to the shop. Madge, shall I start with a bra fitting for Nicky? Nick froze. Yes, indeed. I will leave you to it. Madge turned to leave. I don't think this is such a good idea. I'm just going to leave now, okay, Madge? Madge approached the boy in a gentle manner. Nicky, your stepmother and I discussed this. There is no turning back. Look, I know this must be hard for you to accept, but you've clearly shown us that you like to wear women's clothes. We're merely expediting the process. Madge took a satin and lace legible coffee-colored panty from a nearby rack. She then took Nick aside. Nicky, look at this beautiful panty. Feel how soft it is. Come on. Nick looked around warily. Finally, he felt the lingerie in his hands. If you had the chance to wear these panties and no one knew, would you do it? Be honest with me, dear. As he pondered the question, his hand was still touching the satin fabric. You'd love to wear this, wouldn't you? Red in the face, Nick finally answered in a hushed tone, I guess so. Is that a yes? Yes. That wasn't so hard, was it? You know there are a lot of boys like you who would love to wear beautiful lingerie like this, but they're afraid. It takes courage to come out and admit the truth. I'm proud of you, Nicky. Now, just imagine having handfuls of panties like this. It would be our little secret. Somehow Nick felt a little less nervous and a lot more excited about being in the midst of so much feminine finery. Handfuls of panties. Could they be his? Debbie took Nick by the hand. Come along, dear. And with that they headed for the bra-fitting area. He tried to appear calm and not interested what was going on, but wary of others looking on. So, Nikki, I understand you work next door at the dance studio. How convenient. You know, we offer Ms. Dupont's students and staff a discount on lingerie. Again, this scene drew the attention of customers. All right, Nikki, here we are. Stand there and I will get my tape measure. Off with your shirt, dear. He froze again. He'd never worn a bra up until now, but having seen his stepmother's, he secretly wanted to try one on. Looking around to see if any of the customers were looking, he hesitantly took off his shirt. Well, it looks like you're a 34A, Nikki. Debbie announced. We can work with that. With that, Debbie began to peruse the racks for bras. Oh, Nikki, what colors do you like? I don't know, he whispered, his head down. She returned to the room with a handful of bras. Most were sheer or satin t-shirt bras. Some were padded. All were lovely. Have you worn a bra before, Nick? Debbie grinned. Her voice was loud enough to get the attention of customers. Nick quietly replied he had not. Well, then you're going to love this, and Debbie had Nick stick his arms out and snuggled up behind him. She placed the straps through his outstretched arms and secured the straps in the back. Just a wee bit of adjustment here. Perfect. The bra was a nude t-shirt style with a sheer band around the back. Have a look in the mirror, dear. Nick looked at his image, trying to hide his excitement. He had to admit to himself that he loved the feel of the nylon wrapped around his chest. And the cups had slight padding in them to give the image of him having small breasts. Every girl needs to have at least one nude bra. This one from Waco looks very pretty on you, Nikki. Wouldn't you agree? Yes, that's a keeper. Monica remarked from a distance. Before long, Nick had tried on at least 10 different bras. He secretly loved them all but tried to conceal his interest. Let's keep the white sheer bra on you and find the matching panty. It looks like you're about a size 6 or 8. Of course, all this exposure to beautiful silky bras had Nick aroused. Here, Nikki, just look at the matching panty. Don't you love the lace detail in the front? And the sheer material in the back? Debbie guided Nick away from the fitting area. Come to the changing room and we'll see how it fits. With slightly more privacy, Nick was instructed to remove his clothes and try on the panties. Of course he was reluctant, being in the company of so many strange women. Come on, Nikki. It's time to put on the matching panty. I know you want to. Don't worry, I've seen this all before. We've had many boys come in with their mothers to try on lingerie. A white lie, but she wanted him to relax. Debbie proceeded to undo Nick's pants. He quickly put his hands in front of his underwear to hide his arousal. Off with your briefs. Don't worry, dear, we are professionals. I do this every day. Nick turned away and removed his underwear. He then pulled up the white panties over his thighs and tried to hide his engorged member with the fabric. Turn around, Nikki. Oh, look at that cute little bottom. A nice tight booty any girl would love to have. Nick turned around, keeping his hands covering his erection. Debbie grinned. I think someone likes his panties. Something's missing. I'll be right back. And Nick was left by himself in the changing area. Debbie came back with a pair of white stockings and a high-waisted sheer white garter belt. This is going to look just divine on you, Nikki. Let's go back to the fitting room, sit on the couch. If you haven't put on stockings before, it's best to sit down. Oh dear. I should have known. Nick looked on in confusion. Nikki, you have nasty boy hair on your legs. If we're going to do this right, we'll need to remove that. Oh, no. That's okay. I don't even know why I need to wear all this. Debbie wasn't having any of this. She brought Madge over. Madge. I was thinking we should take Nikki to the salon so we can get his legs waxed. No point in investing in hosiery if our sissy has hairy legs, right? You are absolutely right, Deb. Madge gently put her hand on Nick's shoulder. Nikki, I know you didn't sign up for this. But trust me, dear, you will not regret it. Remember when I helped you fold your stepmother's nylons last week? Didn't they feel nice? The feeling of sliding nylons over bare legs is so very sensuous. If Nick was honest with himself, he'd have agreed right away. He knew from past experience that wearing those stockings would be an incredible sensation, one he couldn't resist. But waxing my legs? This was going too far. Come, my dear. Let's get you all nice and smooth. Then we can get you all the stockings and pantyhose you want. Because I know you want them. Debbie found a kimono-style robe for Nick to put on so that the embarrassment of walking through the store wouldn't be too much. Trouble was it was pink, made of satin and very short. You need something on your feet, my dear. Debbie had Nick put on a pair of nylon spa socks. Walking through the racks of lingerie was overwhelming for the poor boy. By the time they made their way to the salon, he drew further attention from curious customers. One mother looked on in shock. My. Sally, will you look at that? They let sissies in here now? Debbie and Nick stood at the salon reception. Deirdre, Madge wants a rush wax for Nikki. Yes, full wax. I think we can fit that high her in. Come with me, dear. That's a pretty robe you have on, sweetie. Deirdre took Nick to one of the empty beds in the back. As they walked into the salon, there were 4 women getting their hair done, too busy to notice the boy. Okay, Nikki, take off that robe and lay on your stomach. Oh, that's a nice bra and panty set you have on. My. You have good taste. This might sting a little. Not wasting any time, Deirdre got to work. Ouch. Tut, dear. 40 minutes later, Nick's legs were baby smooth. There was a little peach fuzz on his chest and arms which Deirdre also attended to. The icing on the cake? He had his eyebrows shaped into prominent arches. Let's get you wrapped up and back to see Debbie. Nick hurriedly put on his robe/kimono, but he was in no rush to make his way out. Come along, sweetie. And she escorted back into the boutique. Well, Debbie, all done. For a first time, he did okay. Why do they always have to talk so loud? I wish I could hide somewhere. Customers were getting quite the show today. Now they saw a teenaged boy with a short robe, his arms crossed over his chest, grasping himself as if to try and hide. Debbie took Nick back to the change area. But now there were a couple of young women getting a bra fitting in the same area. Nick stopped in his tracks. Let's get those beautiful stockings on you now, Nikki. Debbie tugged at the boy. The 2 women turned their heads and saw a skinny boy wearing a short satin kimono and laughed. Debbie gently admonished the women. Now, ladies. He's a sissy and he can't help it. He loves lingerie just like you do. Shouldn't he get to enjoy the feel of satin and lace on his skin too? As the women looked on, Nick returned to the plush chair and readied himself for trying on the stockings. "Nikki, put this garter belt on. Wrap it around your waist, cinch the two ends together, like this. Now spin it around to the back. Normally you would put your panties over the garter belt. Here, we can stick the garters underneath your panties. Okay, let's see how well you put on these stockings. Be careful, they're delicate." Nick slid the first stocking over this foot and up his leg. The feeling was exhilarating. His legs were tingling. He was glad they had the robe to at least partially cover his predicament. Finally, he had both stocking over his thighs. Without any unwanted hair now, his long legs offered a smooth, shimmery look. "Stand up, Nikki. I'll help you fasten the first garter and you can do the others." Debbie knelt right up close to him and fastened the garter to the hose, stroking his leg in the process. Nick fumbled around and eventually managed to attach the remaining 5 garters. "Let's see the complete package now, Nikki." She slyly removed his protective robe. Voila! The 2 women nearby looked on in amazement. He still looked like a boy in lingerie, but with his lean and hairless body he was anything but masculine. "I admire your taste in lingerie, dear. I have a Wakel bra and panty set just like that." "That lingerie will make anyone look soft and feminine," said her friend, standing beside her. A few other customers stopped to look at the boy in lingerie. Nick began breathing hard and panicking as the crowd grew. He ran to the changing room to hide. After the crowd thinned and Nick regained some composure, Debbie escorted him to the cash register so he could pay for the lingerie haul. 10 pair of panties, 6 bras, half a dozen stockings and numerous packages of pantyhose. On top of that, a black satin body shaper and some pajamas. 2 large bags full of feminine finery. "I know you're still struggling financially, Nikki, so we'll just create an account here and you can pay back in installments. You'll get the dance studio discount and we'll have you on file for our loyalty club. 12 panties and you get the next one free," Madge explained. It was a tiring day for Nick. And he still had to go into work soon. Madge escorted Nick home. "How did it go, Madge?" "Oh, splendidly. Nikki was a natural and we even gave him a full body wax." Sandy smiled. She was enjoying the bewildered look on Nick's face. This was going to be fun. "Oh, Nikki. How do you feel now?" I am not sure," was all he could muster. "Here, let me help you with those, Nikki. Let's take them up to your room now." "Thank you again, Madge." Nick still couldn't believe this was actually happening. "Here I have more than a week's worth of women's underwear. At least I don't have to keep any secrets now. You won't be needing your old underwear, so I've thrown all of that in the garbage. You have 2 drawers now to fit you bras, panties, shapewear, hosiery and nightwear. Why did you throw away all my boxers and—" "You still don't understand, do you, Nikki? These beautiful clothes are what you'll be wearing from now on, well, for long as you live in this household. And you've paid for them with your hard-earned money." This was cold turkey for Nick. No more socks, no more briefs or boxers. His drawers were full of bras, panties and hosiery. Miss Dupont was not surprised when Laura came in to report that she had recruited 12 students for her boys' ballet class. It would have been more accurate to say that she had recruited 12 mothers who would sign their boys up for class. Laura found some of potential recruits through sisters who were taking classes already. Others, she simply began cold calling mostly single mothers in town. She was eventually able to connect with a network of like-minded women. Ideally, the boys would be in their early teens and on the effeminate side. "I am impressed, Laura. Well done. I think we can slot your class into Thursday evenings starting in 2 weeks. That's wonderful, Ms. Dupont. Ms. Dupont went to her filing cabinet. Here. I have an information package I use for new students. Please send this out to the mothers of the prospective students. It outlines clothing and other requirements. I expect the boys to wear the same outfits as the girls. Also, I want you to set up an orientation session where the boys attend one of our intermediate ballet classes. Consider it an inspirational opportunity. Oh, Ms. Dupont, if I may, one more thing. Yes? I was wondering. Would you mind if I have Nicky join the class? He's a little older than the other boys, but he seems like my kind of student. Miss Dupont could tell that Laura had her eyes on Nicky. Predatory eyes. Was she going to interfere with my program, or do I want to see how she handles Nicky? You've taken a liking to Nicky, haven't you, Miss Hutchinson? It shows, does it? Oh, if I'm out of place, please tell me. You say you've worked with Miss Hennessy, have you? I am very familiar with Barbara's school. She is very experienced and well respected in the recruitment and training of young men. Just how much experience have you had at behavioral modification? I have had the pleasure of working on a number of projects under her tutelage. I invite you to speak with her for details. I tell you what. I will adjust his schedule and let you take on Nicky for your class. But I want to be consulted on his progress. Oh, thank you, Ms. Dupont. I won't let you down. Laura smiled mischievously. Meanwhile, Nick was secretly enjoying wearing panties and pantyhose around the house. He didn't need any reminders. He loved the feel of the nylon hugging his legs. Still though, he wasn't sure why he needed a bra. He had a drawer full. Of course, his questioning having bras did not stop him from trying them on from time to time. He enjoyed the feeling of wearing an additional layer of nylon. On this day, Nick felt the need to kick up the excitement level a little. Today he decided to wear a bra and see how it felt under his polo shirt. He chose his matching pink satin bra and panty set along with off-black pantyhose. Having no female figure in his life until he was in his mid-teens, Nick didn't really know how to behave around women. He took after his dad, quiet and unassuming. When his stepmother came into his life, he became more shy and reserved around her. He was infatuated. And he was fascinated by her femininity, and so perhaps that's why he became drawn to objects of femininity lingerie. Now that he was getting used to lingerie, Sandy was planning on taking Nick on another shopping trip, this time for girls' outerwear. Tops and bottoms, maybe some shoes. I recommend you take Nicky to Mademoiselle. I know the owner and they have a huge selection of clothes for young ladies. Madge had told Sandy. While Nick finished vacuuming the living room, Sandy came into the room. You're doing a good job, Nicky. When she got closer to him, she noticed the telltale signs of a bra under his shirt. Oh, Nicky. You decided to wear a bra at last. How does it feel? Well, fine. I think he was still reluctant to reveal how much he was enjoying wearing lingerie. That's great. And good timing too. Today we're going to get you some new clothes. Ah, but do I need new clothes? Your pants and shirts are getting worn out, and besides, you need something more appropriate with your underwear collection. Now get ready, we're heading out. Wait. I need to change. He did not want to be out in public wearing a bra. No, you don't need to change. Now come along. Sandy was adamant. She grabbed Nick by the upper arm and escorted him to the car. Sandy drove Nick to the mall where Mademoiselle was located. I don't understand why you want me to wear girls' pants and shirts. Isn't it enough that I am wearing girls' underwear? It's so humiliating being seen in these stores. That's because you look like a boy, Nikki. If we made you up with lipstick and mascara, I don't think anyone would take a second look given your beautiful long hair. If you continue to be obstinate, we can arrange that. Entering the mall, it was full of busy shoppers, and as Sandy guided him toward Mademoiselle, Nick could see it was full of girls around his age. Oh, no. I hope no one I know is here. Nick was getting fed up with the humiliation of shopping for girls' clothes. Sandy was greeted by a saleslady when they arrived. Hi, my name is Sandy. My friend Madge Cullimore suggested that I come here to buy some clothes for my stepson Nicky. Oh, how nice. I must say we don't get many boys coming in here to buy clothes, but I'm sure we can find something for your stepson. What did you have in mind? Well, I think we should start with blouses and slacks. Maybe a pair of jeans as well. If you have ideas, please do not hesitate. Okay, let's see what we can do for you. Nikki. The saleslady took them to a rack of blouses and skirts. What kind of style and material are you interested in today? Nick was silent. Nikki seems to be partial to smooth, shiny things. So, less cotton, more satiny. I don't see Nikki partying or going on dates, so more casual stuff. Right, dear? Sandy smiled at her stepson. We can work with that. What size are you, dear? Nikki is a size 8. The saleslady began pulling out a few items from the rack. This beige satin chiffon V-neck blouse is lovely. This sheer black sleeveless top is maybe a little too daring. Nick nodded. No. Daring is fine. What else have you got? Eventually Nick had 5 tops to try on. Thank goodness there were changing rooms where he had some privacy. The one day he decides to wear a bra. Nikki, I want you to come out and show us each outfit. Fear gripped Nick as he had to make his way to the end of the store with a bunch of girls' clothes in his hands. He just marched to the changing room, head down. He tried on the first top, the V-neck. It felt nice and slippery on him. Not too tight to show of his bra. Trouble was the women were back where he'd left them and they wanted him to model the blouse in front of them. Red-faced, he hurriedly made his way back and stood in front of the women. That looks lovely on you, Nikki. And it seems to fit well. And on it went. He left the sheer top till last. He certainly did not want to reveal his bra, so he took it off before putting his arms through the clingy top. Making his way out, he was even more self-conscious. But surprisingly, so far all he got were surprised looks on customers' faces. He breathed in a sigh of relief knowing this was the last of the blouses. Nikki! You're not wearing your bra. Oh, God. No. He wanted to hide in the corner. Go back and put your bra back on, then this lovely top. I'm not sure how much more of this I can take, he thought. Inside the cubicle, he took off the top and put his bra back on. Had it been a nude bra, it might not have shown through as much. But he was wearing a pink bra. How much more obvious could it be? He slid the sheer top over his head. It clung to every curve he had, and enhanced to the look of the bra. Walking out of the changing room, he crossed his arms across his chest. Do you see that, Emily? There's a boy wearing a bra under a sheer blouse. Now he stood in front of the women. Sandy pushed him arms aside. That's a very sexy look on a girl, the saleslady grinned. He'll take all 5 of the blouses. The humiliation did not end there. Before he left, he was the owner of 2 pairs of hip-hugging bell-bottom slacks and a pink box pleated skirt. Back home, he had to get rid of 5 shirts to make room for his blouses. And 2 pair of jeans were replaced by his new slacks. On the day of the first class, the boys were instructed to arrive early. It was quite a sight, seeing a stream of SUVs and the mothers dropping off their sons in front of the dance studio. Young boys, all rather slight in build, probably no older than 14. They were wearing the required white leotards with lacy cap sleeves and thong back. If that weren't feminine enough, they wore shiny white tights and short white tutus. Many were wearing slippers on their feet with point shoes hanging from their shoulders. Needless to say, they did not waste any time in getting inside the studio lest they be seen by passers-by. Ms. Dupont's assistant, Kirsten, assembled the boys in the foyer and called Laura to alert her that her students had all arrived. Truth was, Kirsten was jealous that this girl got to do this job. She had hoped Ms. Dupont would start to give her more responsibilities. Laura came out of the studio wearing a sleeveless black bodysuit, a long lavender-colored skirt and ballet slippers. Her dark hair was tied back in a ponytail. Severely. Like her presence. "Ah, you're all here." Laura spoke with a cool, somewhat indifferent tone. "Welcome to Dupont's dance studio. I am your instructor." Laura looked over each of the boys, from head to toe. Each look emphasizing the state of their dress. "You will address me as Ms. Laura or Madam. You are not ladies, far from it, but for purposes of my instruction I will address you as ladies." The boys looked at each other with embarrassed and worried looks on their faces. "Now ladies, line up in 2 rows of 6. Follow me." Laura escorted the boys into the main ballet studio where their class would take place. But they were early and a girls' ballet class was still underway. Of course, Laura had arranged this with the girls' teacher ahead of time. When the teen-aged girls saw the group of young boys all in white ballet kit, they could hardly stifle their giggles. There was no place for the boys to hide. They just hung their red faces down. This is exactly the effect Laura wanted to see. Boys need to be humiliated. A moment later, Nick quietly and hesitantly entered the studio. He too was dressed in the white nylon outfit. "Nicky, you're late. Get over here now." Laura grabbed Nick by the ear and positioned him at the end of the row of the other boys. He stood out like a sore thumb. He was 3 or 4 years older than the others and considerably taller. This caused even more laughter from the girls. "Let's all sit down on the floor and watch the girls practice. Maybe someday you can be just like these girls. For those of you who haven't put on your point shoes, do it now. I trust you've read the instructions." The boys all awkwardly sat down with their legs crossed. "Oh, Ms. Randolph? It was the Sullivan girl. Would it be okay if I demonstrated an arabesque with one of our guests?" "That's a lovely idea, Rachel." "Oh, no. Please, no. I just know she's going to select me." Before long, Rachel glided over to the group of boys. She slowly made her way from left to right, examining each boy. She looked each one in the eyes until they shied away. Then she came to Nick and held out her hand. "Would it be okay if I borrowed your student, madam?" Laura smiled. "Absolutely. Be my guest." Nick looked on in disbelief. He gave Laura a pleading look, but of course there was no way she would object to this display. Rachel eventually grabbed Nick by the wrist and pulled the taller boy to the other end of the dance floor. She stood behind Nick as he faced the bar. Her hands on his waist. "Nicky, I am going to show you how to do an arabesque. Use your right hand to hold on to the bar. Now, extend your left arm back, palm to the ground. Yes, very good, dear." Naturally, the girls were loving every minute of this. Rachel took Nick's left ankle and gradually lifted his leg straight out and upward. Higher and higher. "Ouch! Come on, sissy. I've hardly stretched your leg." "Boys, I expect Ms. Laura will teach you this move in the weeks to come. This is a basic move that the girls can easily do. Okay girls, time to wrap things up. When the girls' class finished, Laura thanked Ms. Rudolph for generously allowing visitors to her class. Clap, clap. Okay boys, make your way to far wall. Laura herded the awkward and apprehensive boys across the studio. She looked forward to finally having a formal boys' ballet class. She had been working at and enjoying feminizing boys for years now. That included working with mothers who thought it was a good idea to have their boys learn ballet. Her aunt had taught her a great deal about behavioral modification. Laura was an only child. Her father died when she was young, and it was just her and her mother growing up. So it was that she grew to hate males, from the men who would court her mom to the bullies at school for whom she often set straight. Of course, none of her students knew of any of this, but they were going to find out soon that she did not suffer fools gladly, and especially boys. Put your right hand on the bar and face the mirror. Laura proceeded to go through a number of beginner ballet moves with the boys. And naturally, many of the boys were uncoordinated. In one case, stubborn. She wasted no time in singling out the stubborn boy. And what is your name? Laura stood directly in front of the boy, her eyes boring into his. The boy clearly did not want to be there. He'd been sulking since he arrived. Smirking, he answered Laura, Terry. She stood right in front of him and put her hands on the boy's shoulders. So, you don't want to be here, is that it? Your mother and sister warned me about your attitude. I will not have you set a bad example for the rest of the ladies. Her steely brown eyes crumpled whatever confidence he had. As she was berating the boy, she tightened her grip on his shoulders, almost massaging them. Then, easing her grip, she moved closer and stroked the boy's cap sleeve with her right hand. With her left hand, she made her way down the back of his leotard and took the material in her hand. With a grimace on her face, she gradually grabbed more and more of the leotard. This had the effect of pulling the thong back deeper into the boy's butt. And then one final yank upward and Terry yelped. Laura grinned. Do not make me have to discipline you in front of your peers. I would not want to embarrass you any further. Actually, I would. But for now, let's all start again with the fondues. I will demonstrate again. With the boys all in a row, Laura walked slowly, examining each as they practiced. With a quirt in hand, she used it to correct mistakes. A little nudge here, a sharp smack there, the boys became very focused, albeit clumsy. A short time later, Ms. Dupont entered the studio and watched quietly as the boys went through their new routines. She smiled at the sight of the clumsy new ballerinas. Toward the end of the hour, she made her way to the class. She was wearing a white blouse, gray pantsuit. Her hair tied back as usual. Brilliant red lipstick popping out in sensuous fashion. Hello, madam. It is an honor to have you visit our class. With hands clasped behind her back, she glided up to the class and stood in front of the line of beginner ballerinas. I wouldn't miss this, our inaugural boys' ballet class, for the world. It's so nice to see such delicate creatures. I can tell that most of you are naturals, she lied. Ballet is a wonderful discipline, dears. You will learn to move with grace, be light on your feet, and I can tell already that you adore wearing the most feminine of outfits. It reminds me of when I first started ballet. I hope you appreciate how lucky you are to have this opportunity. Now, I expect you to dedicate yourselves to learning from Ms. Hutchinson. I know how dedicated she is to teaching you pretty things. Oh, before I go, Ms. Hutchinson, would you mind repeating the fondue with Nikki here? I must have missed it. Laura grinned. Of course, madam. Nikki, come forward. Feet facing out. Arms out to your sides. Now, 1, 2, 3. Tisk, TSK. You're not doing it right, Nikki. You must concentrate. Again. Nick was of course not used to doing such movements and he was getting tired. And being scrutinized in front of Ms. Dupont was even more harrowing. I will leave you to it, Ms. Hutchinson. I'm sure you will have Nikki on the right path in no time. After Ms. Dupont left, Laura came up to Nick and placed her hands on his waist and guided him through the exercise. Eventually she was so close she was almost grinding her front against his behind. His face was flush with effort and embarrassment. With Laura so close he got aroused and only the tent of the tutu prevented any sign of his condition. With a slap on his butt, Laura backed off a little. Okay, Nikki, continue. 10 more. No smirks from the rest of you or you'll be repeating Nikki's routine. As the class drew to an end, Laura had a surprise for her students. Ladies, as part of your tuition to my class, we have these lovely Dupont's Dance Studio water bottles. I want you to bring them to class each week. I know you must be thirsty, so go ahead and take one and drink up. They are full of vitamin water to rehydrate you. The bottles were bright pink, probably not their first choice of color. And the vitamin water was a special mixture made especially by Laura. Finally, another little surprise. For your next class, I want you wearing a bra. That's right, a padded bra. In the color nude. You will ask your mother to help you pick one out. I want you to fill out your leotards properly. This was not part of the instructions that Laura gave to the parents, but then Miss Dupont hadn't written them for boys. Laura had a few additional instructions up her sleeve to enhance the feminine experience. All in good time. The boys were tempted to protest, but no one was brave enough to speak up. Nor were any of them brave enough to disobey their mothers. With the class over, the boys scurried out to catch their rides home. Nick was left to get back to work. Nikki, I want a word with you. Nick made his way to his instructor. She drew close to him and took his hands in hers. Nikki, dear. Madam told me that you were to remain in your ballet kit as you finish your shift. Just go and put on your ballet flats. While this was certainly an embarrassing situation for him, he found he loved how the tights and leotard hugged his body. And so on he went to sweep the floors and clean the equipment. He tried to avoid the foyer until after the studio closed. By the time Nick got home, he was exhausted. He headed straight for his bedroom. Turning on the light, he was shocked at what he saw. His bed. It was now covered in a soft pink satin bedspread. On top of the bed were a pair of sky blue satin pajamas with pink cherry blossoms. The feminization at the hands of his stepmother was continuing. First, his drawers full of lingerie, his old clothes thrown away, his closet full of girls' blouses and pants. What next? He was too tired to protest. He put on his new pajamas and they felt delicious. Turning back the bedspread, he eased his way into luxurious pink satin sheets, duvet cover and pillowcases. The slippery feeling he got with the satin on satin was like heaven for him. He fell into a deep sleep. His dreams were full of soft satiny clouds and images of Laura chasing him. He was so light and feminine and he could not escape. When Nick awoke, it dawned on him that he was wearing satin pajamas. He didn't want to take them off. He looked around for his robe. He was now getting used to wearing satiny clothes and his robe was no different. It was knee-length satin with lace edging in the color of salmon. On his feet he slid into a pair of his new slippers. Walking into the kitchen, he was stunned to see Laura sitting there talking with his stepmother. Good morning, Nikki.